Okay, I think we'll get started. So thank you for joining this webinar about the UQ-Ochsner program. So I'll get started by introducing the panel. Dr. Webb, can I start with you, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tamika Webb-Detige. I'm a rheumatologist by trade, and I'm the Deputy Head of Admissions and Enrollment for our medical school.
Great, thank you. Scott?
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Peters. I'm the Program Director for the Ochsner Clinical School.
Thank you. Kayla?
Hey everyone, my name is Kayla Baker and I am the current fourth year at UQ-Ochsner.
And Kayla is currently in Australia with me, so um, early morning. I haven't had my second coffee, so just bear with me. Okay, so we will jump into the presentation now, and then at the end, we will open it to the chat. But if you can just let us know a little bit about yourself in the chat in the meantime, so that we can kind of get to know each other, that would be great. Dr. Webb, can I hand over to you? I'll share the slides if you give me a sec.
Take your time.
This is always the tricky part.
So like Brian said, I'm Dr. Tamika Webb-Detige. I'm a rheumatologist by trade. I love what I do, and my job is to make sure that we get the best students to come to our school and enjoy the experience of learning in two locations, and also the experience of caring for the best patients, both in Australia and in New Orleans. So let's see.
I'm just getting my Zoom all sorted again.
Take your time.
All
So
right.
my journey to medicine was traditional. I majored in biology, and I decided I didn't want to do pure research and science because I knew I enjoyed talking. I talk a lot, and I wanted to make sure that the career I chose included science and also the ability to continue to learn on a daily basis and interact with patients and help them to achieve their best health. So I've been with Ochsner for 16 years, and any place you look at for your learning and for your career in the future, you should make sure that the people who are there have committed to be there for a while, because that shows you that they believe in that institution. Our medical school is the combination of two locations. You can see on the map, the University of Queensland is in Brisbane, Australia, and Ochsner is in New Orleans, Louisiana. Next slide. So our school allows you to have a global education, and the University of Queensland is a top 50 global university with 6 faculties. And for us, we call that usually 6 schools at a college. And those faculties include things like the Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Science, Engineering, and Business. University of Queensland has 30 plus teaching and research sites, and is world known for its research institutes. And just so you know, most of you are familiar with the Gardasil vaccine, and that came through the research done at the University of Queensland. Now, Ochsner is also a world-class institution. We have 40 hospitals and 100 health centers. We're the #1 hospital in Louisiana with over 1,330 physicians and 90 plus medical specialties. So that means in your training, you'll be exposed to so many opportunities to interact with physicians from different specialties, and that will help you to make the decision on your own career. Next slide. What about our program? So our program, like all medical schools, is a 4-year MD program. It says full-time, but if we're honest about how hard medical students study, it's double full-time. You can ask Kayla when she talks to you. So year 1 and 2 is spent in Brisbane, Australia, and years 3 and 4 are in New Orleans. So when you're in Australia, you're getting your basic science courses, but you're also getting early contact with patients. And the one thing we notice at Ochsner, we get to work with students from our medical school, also from LSU and Tulane. Our students come after their second year, and they are well prepared and ready to get into the clinics and in the hospital to do physicals and take excellent histories. Because our school is combined and has one part of it in Australia, it is considered an international medical school, and you must have ECFMG certification as an international medical grad. We have all that eligibility for our graduates, and our graduates are able to practice in all 50 states as well as in Australia. Next slide. So you can go to medical school, but you need to do something else to become a doctor. You need to be successful in your steps, and you also need to match. So regarding the steps, USMLE, step 1, you can see that all of our students to date, 1,078, our first-time pass rate is 89%, and the average score is 219. Now, in 2022, we had a 99% pass rate, and you can see the rates during the years there. Now, one thing we all know is that step 1 is now pass-fail, so we won't have scores for 2024 and 2025. Step 2 still has scores, and you can see that our pass rate for all of our students to date is 92% with an average score of 234. So our students are successful in their steps, and you need to do this to move forward. Next slide. So after you're successful on your steps, you need to match. And I'm not going to bore you with everything on this slide. Let's just focus on 2024. If you go to the first column, that's the number of positions. So there were 41,503 positions in the match for residencies. The total number of applications was 44,853. Now, we're all pretty smart on here, and we can tell that there were more applications than there were positions available. So that means some people who enter the match don't get a residency position. Now, the next column is UQ-Ochsner. We had 99% match rate this year, which is excellent. And in comparison to seniors who graduated from U.S. medical schools, the match rate was 93.5. To DO schools, 92%, and to other international medical grads, the match rate was 59%. If you follow UQ-Ochsner column all the way down, you can see that our match rate has been close to or has exceeded U.S. medical schools on most years. So if you come to us, you will get a residency spot. And if you get your residency spot, you're able to move forward and become a practicing physician. Without that, you won't be able to move forward in a specialty. Next slide. What are the entry requirements? So we have a fairly simple entry requirement for you. So for the MCAT, you must have a minimum of 504. Your GPA must be in B average, and that is in your cumulative coursework, either your bachelor or master's degree, the most recently obtained degree that you have. We have 2 subject prerequisites, not all the same prerequisites that you have for U.S. medical schools. You must complete these second-level courses, and we know that these are the courses, pardon me, that allow students to be successful in our school. Integrated cell and tissue biology and systems physiology or equivalent courses. Our admissions team will look through your coursework and see if it qualifies for either of those prerequisites. But even if it doesn't, UQ has online options that you can use to complete those requirements, and they are at no cost to you. Next slide. So after you have reached all of those requirements, you'll be invited for an interview. And our multiple mini interview is used to assess your personal qualities. A physician needs to be more than just smart. They need to show kindness and compassion to their patients. They need to be able to communicate with them. They must have integrity. And so we have our multiple mini interviews that are conducted via Zoom, and they consist of 8 successive 10-minute interviews that take place. Next slide. So our calendar year is a little bit different than U.S. medical schools. Our application cycle is open now for January 2025 and for January 2026 intake. So if you're looking at either year, you can start your application. It's very, very easy to apply. It's free in-house application. It's not a part of AMCAS, and there's no secondary application. So there are no letters of recommendations, no personal statements or resumes that are required that you need to show. You just need to make sure you have those three prerequisites the two prerequisites, the GPA and the MCAT. You don't have to have the 10 prerequisites that are needed for U.S. medical schools. You can start your application now, even without your MCAT score, but you must have it in order to move forward with the interviews. Next slide. So, medical school costs, and this is the cost of our medical school. It is in line with U.S. private medical schools, $67,456 based on the annual fee for 2023. Now, UQ is accredited by the United States Department of Education to administer different needs-based loans that students are eligible for and or their parents, and this is a part of the William D. Ford Direct Loan Program. Also, FAFSA application for government funding will cover tuition and living expenses as well. Next slide. Now, for those students who are interested in primary care, and that includes family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and internal medicine combined with a primary care track, as well as psychiatry, there's the option to be an Ochsner Scholar, and this program will pay $135,000 US towards your medical school expenses. And that is in exchange of you committing to work at Ochsner Health for at least 5 years after completing your residency. So I've been here 16 years. I could have gotten this if it was available, but it's available to you now. So take advantage of that opportunity. Next slide. All right, so I'm gonna stop there. It's now time for the next speaker.
Scott,
Thank
can
you,
I hand
Dr.
over to you?
Webb.
Right.
Sure. This year is actually going to be 18 years that I will be at Ochsner, and I have had the privilege to be with this program since it started in 2009, and I've gotten to see it grow and flourish, and our graduates go on to do some incredibly amazing things. Our students have many opportunities, and the OMSA, which you see here, stands for the Ochsner Medical Student Association. And I'm actually going to leave this for Kayla to discuss because she has held a couple of positions on the OMSA board. But let me tell you a little bit about our student ambassadors. The UQ-Ochsner administration nominates fourth-year medical students for the prestigious role of the UQ-Ochsner Student Ambassador. Chosen students possess exemplary leadership skills, professionalism, and a solid commitment to UQ-Ochsner. This role is reserved for exceptional fourth-year students who have demonstrated a solid dedication to their studies and the UQ-Ochsner community. As a student ambassador, students represent the student body at various events, including open house, medical school admissions interviews, annual third-year welcome events, visits from faculty, just to name a few. They can interact with prospective students and their families, offer a campus tour, answer questions, and share personal experiences about the program. Additionally, our student ambassadors have the unique opportunity to serve as interviewers during the medical school admissions interviews. This provides a valuable experience which will benefit the admissions process and allow students to develop their leadership and communication skills further. The UQ-Ochsner Clinical School has student interest groups, clubs, and associations. The student interest groups allow students to create programs and activities to further their shared interests in medical specialties. Student clubs are not specifically specialty specific, yet they bring together similar interests. So for example, some of the student interest groups are internal medicine, pediatrics, surgery, psychiatry, and some of the student clubs include the Association of Women Surgeons, the Gold Humanism Honor Society, the Global Health Interest Group, Minorities for Medicine, Student for Wilderness and Adventure, Medical Practice, Medicine in Motion. There's always a plethora of things for our students. The involvement they have in the community positively impacts the New Orleans area and its surrounding areas through various outreach activities. In the first semester of 2023, we don't have the 2024 numbers yet, 90 students dedicated their time and energy to volunteer for 24 events. One of the most significant events was the Jazz Fest Medical First Aid Tent, where volunteers spent 5 days providing medical assistance, and I'm sure enjoying some wonderful music. Some other long-standing community outreach events that our students participate in include Walk with the Doc, Miracle League, Meals with Love, Luke's House, swamp cleanup events, Habitat for Humanity. And through their active involvement in these events, our students gain a valuable experience and make a huge impact in the lives of those in need. So for rotations, of course, our students are allowed to have elective rotations here at Ochsner. Many of them also choose to go outside of Ochsner. And through our graduates who have matched in many of the locations, that is one way that our students are able to reach out and apply for elective rotations outside of Ochsner. During their 4th year, students return to Australia for one 6 to 8 week rotation. And this is something that allows it. It's a requirement for the Australian Medical Council, but it also allows the students right before completing their medical education to return one last time to Australia to visit with friends and reconnect with everything down under. Our students have plenty of opportunity for international opportunities. One currently is the Panama Floating Doctors, which has occurred last year and again this year. Several years ago, our students would take medical missions to Haiti, Manipal, and besides our physicians who have those connections here at Ochsner to the international community, UQ being such a global institution also provides the opportunity for all those international opportunities. And I think we can turn it over to Kayla.
Great, thank you, Kayla. I will stop sharing quickly and then hand over to you, so just bear with me.
All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience as a student at Ochsner. Again, my name is Kayla. I am the OMSA Vice President and a current 4th year. And my journey to UQ-Ochsner is that I decided that I wanted to go to medical school after I had already finished undergrad. And so it was difficult for me to convince US medical schools to take a chance on me because of that. UQ-Ochsner was much more forgiving in terms of me being a non-traditional student. And I also really liked the idea of learning about a completely different healthcare system than the one that we have in the US. Knowing that I was also going to be moving to New Orleans at some point was also a huge draw. I had never been, and it sounded like it would be a great time. So starting with my time in Australia, that was amazing. Living in Brisbane during my preclinical years was incredible. It's very different from any city in the US that I've ever been to, and even outside of the US. And I really feel like we built a really strong foundation for the rest of our education, particularly in our clinical skills. Also, if you have been bitten by the travel bug, there is plenty of opportunity to get that done. I traveled all over Australia and Indonesia when I was here before, and I have friends who went to New Zealand, Japan, Thailand, Fiji, and more during their time here. In terms of personal development, moving to not only a different country, but in like an entirely new continent is really scary. It pushed me very far outside of my comfort zone. But that's really when we do the most growing, and I don't regret any part of it. Like Brian mentioned, I am currently in Australia right now. I am back on my 4th year placement. I'm doing a rural and remote medicine rotation. So I'm working in an ER and on the wards in a rural community in central Queensland, which has been wild. Highly recommend. So transitioning to clinical years is not a walk in the park for any medical student, whether they are a USMD student, a DO student, or an international student. It's kind of a culture shock and a whole new set of expectations. However, I did feel very supported by the faculty at Ochsner. They made it a much easier transition than I felt like it was going to be. So always thankful for that. Being able to live in New Orleans and experience the culture there while working in a massive hospital system like Ochsner is also a really good way to kick off your clinical years. I grew up in the Northeast, and I used to think that I would not enjoy any part of living in the South. But between Mardi Gras, the food, the endless coffee shops and study spots, the extremely welcoming and friendly locals, and the fact that there's always something really cool happening in New Orleans, it's exceeded all of my expectations, and I would happily stay here for residency. So while at Ochsner, I see that, Dr. Webb. While at Ochsner, I've been able to take part in a lot of different student organizations and parts of clinical education that exposed me to different areas of medicine that I didn't know anything about, which has been really valuable. For example, some US schools only have you rotate on a general surgery team for your whole surgery rotation during the third year. Meanwhile, I got to rotate on colorectal surgery, ear, nose, and throat, and breast surgery in addition to general surgery. Similarly, when I was on pediatrics, I experienced inpatient pediatric medicine, outpatient peds, neonatal ICU, the mother and baby unit, and a pediatric surgical subspecialty. So that's a lot of things that I didn't really know existed, and it exposed me to a lot of good stuff. The variety of our clinical experience is, I would say, unmatched, and it can be tailored to your interests. So speaking of student organizations, as I mentioned before, I'm the vice president of our Ochsner Medical Student Association. This is basically our student council. We liaise with our administration on behalf of the student body, and we work to make sure that our students feel heard and supported. I also have the privilege of helping conduct the admissions interviews for UQ-Ochsner, so maybe I'll see some of you in that. Last year, I was also the OMSA research officer. This was a really good opportunity to help get students involved in research while they're at Ochsner and have a better chance of matching into their preferred specialty. And there are many other organizations that you can get involved with. You can really have fun with it. For example, I'm also in PRISM, which is our LGBTQ club, the Gold Humanism Honor Society with Dr. Webb, and our Association of Women Surgeons chapter. That was a lot, so thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Kayla. So we'll open up the chat now for questions. So the floor is yours, so please ask us some questions. But in the meantime, Dr. Webb, I've got a question for you. You said that the program is more than a full-time program, and I guess moving to Australia and then moving to New Orleans is also a big ordeal. What type of student do you think does well in our program to be able to handle all of that activity?
So what I said, Brian, you misquoted me, is that medical school as a whole is more than a full-time job. So it's not just our medical school, but when you go to medical school, you work hard, you study hard. And sometimes people who don't quite get it think they're going to have a part-time job. And your part-time job is medical school. Your full-time job is medical school. So I think the thing is, our students, the type of student that thrives with us is courageous. They have the ability to pivot and to be in non-traditional environments than what they would have expected, and to move through situations that are not traditional for what you would expect from medical school. You're moving completely away from your family. The time zone is different, so you can't even call them at the right time when you need a little bit of support there. So Kayla knows that you develop independence quickly, and you also learn how to ask for help and to rely on your classmates and then your society heads and the other supports. But it takes a student that's willing to step out and do something different. For us, our vision is really to nurture and educate future doctors that are going to be clinically excellent, that are going to be team players, that are going to be able to work in a global environment, whether they're taking care of patients in Australia or taking care of people in the Ninth Ward in New Orleans. They have that ability to deliver excellent care to everyone and a commitment to that. So that's my biggest desire, is to make sure that we are attracting students that are excited about patient care, excited about being continuous learners, and a plug for my specialty, rheumatology, the one specialty where you need to know the total body, the total person. And so I love what I do, and I'm looking for people to join our medical school, to love medicine as much as I do, to want to be in service to patients, and then also service to students, because you will be the teachers of them once you're done. That
Great.
was a lot. Sorry.
That's all good, but I'm actually going to stay with you for the next question. So there is a question in there about how you think our program might be a good fit for someone from a non-traditional background like engineering.
It is perfect. You will realize that a lot of our students already have careers. They've been nurses, they've been lawyers, they've been engineers, they've been execs, and they've realized that that love of potentially being a doctor is still in there. Sometimes we bury that down when we see the level of work and the amount of prerequisites. And so you go down this other track and you're like, I can do that. But for those people who really, I believe, were meant to be physicians, that desire still burns in them and it comes up. And our school allows you to fulfill that goal without going back and doing a post-bac program, without going back and getting 10 prerequisites. You get your 2 prerequisites, you come with your MCAT and your GPA, and you're able to move forward and be successful. Our students have matched in very highly competitive residencies and have been successful. The amazing thing about being a part of the medical school since 2009 is that I have taught people who I have then taught in residency, who I've then met in fellowship, who are now my colleagues. And that is an amazing thing, to have someone you taught as a colleague, because now I know what I did, the work was good. I did good work. I see the product.
Thank you. Kayla, I might stay with you for the same question. So you've obviously met a whole bunch of current students. What kind of backgrounds have they come from?
Really, people have come from all kinds of backgrounds. I have friends who worked in finance before they decided that they wanted to do medicine. So they got like a whole economics or business degree. Myself, I didn't initially think I was going to do medicine. I was more interested in doing a PhD. So I do have a biology background. But there are pretty much every like college major you can think of is represented within our class. We've got people who are psychology majors and all kinds of things, mathematics.
Great, thank you. There's a question there about the if our students have an undergraduate degree or if they have had a few years out. I know it's a bit of a mix, but probably leaning towards more of a few years out of undergraduate. Would you say that's correct, Dr. Webb?
Yes, I would. And many of them have higher degrees as well.
Great, thank you. Dr. Weber, there's another question there for you. Could you talk a little bit more about the MDPP? So there's someone in the chat who has one of the prerequisites, but it's kind of working towards the other and wants to know if they can still apply or not.
They can still apply if they were accepted. It would be conditional that they completed that prerequisite. But that prerequisite that they're completing should be evaluated to make sure it fulfills it. And if not, they'll be given the information to proceed through the MDPP.
Great. And then the GPA that we use, does the post-bac GPA get taken into consideration, or is it their undergraduate GPA?
It's the terminal degree.
Great.
So that would be your post-bac.
Kayla, question for you. Graduating as an international medical graduate, so you're in 4th year and kind of going into applying for a residency. How concerned are you about that?
Unmute myself. I would say I'm not concerned at all. You can look up some of the places that our graduates have matched and some of the different residencies that they've matched into. We've matched people into neurosurgery, orthopedics, plastic surgery, ENT, a ton of the very competitive specialties people do match into, which is very, that was something that was really important to me, someone who's interested in a competitive specialty. I wanted to know that I at least had a shot of being successful in doing what I wanted to do going through this program. And I do feel that if that is something you want to do, you can do it.
Wonderful. I'll stay with you. There's a question about student support. I mean, this is a very important topic for us, and we feel that we do support our students, but what has been your experience?
I would say overall it felt very well supported. If there is ever an issue in class, or if you have general feedback for the faculty, either at UQ or at Ochsner, they do leave the door open that you can bring those things up and discuss it with them. They're very responsive. In terms of mentorship, we meet with our society heads who are physicians who work at Ochsner several times throughout our careers, and they are very helpful in terms of, you know, getting us settled in New Orleans and getting us set up for residency. And additionally, we also offer kind of a mentorship between student program. So I had a mentor who was the year above me starting in 1st year, and I would honestly text her all the time and be like, help me, I don't know what this means, or like, you know, what can I expect moving to Australia, or what is this exam going to be like? And she was always there to basically walk me through it and made me feel so much better about that. And so I've also had opportunity to be that mentor for several people, and that's a huge source of support as well.
Great to hear. Scott, conscious I haven't thrown a question to you. Do you have anything more to add around student support?
Actually, a couple of things that Kayla had touched on. I've found that our students, whenever they're as graduates going out applying for residency, because of the uniqueness of the program, they actually stand out even more because of this unique journey that they've been on. And there's absolutely no lack of conversation during residency interviews. A lot of times they're always focused on, tell me more about what you did in Australia. So that's always a plus for our graduates. And another thing I wanted to mention is that, which is part of the student support, is that our administration is so passionate about taking care of our students and making sure that they are successful, because since we've graduated so many over the years, we have now come full circle and now have a lot of our team members have our graduates that are our physicians. And so that's just a great full circle moment. And we know that we are going to have you taking care of us one day. So we make sure that they're getting the best education they can.
Great, thank you. Dr. Webb, there's a couple of admission questions in there, particularly around our admission cycle. So as you mentioned, we don't have an open and close date for people to submit applications. but essentially the cycle is going to stay the same of when we're going to interview for MMIs. There's also a question in there about if someone hasn't studied or sat the MCAT by now, is there still time for them to do so and get into an interview?
So we open our enrollment for the next year, November, and it's a rolling basis. And so after each interview from fall, we started in, well, pardon me, from March to the fall, we interview. And so after each of those rounds of interviews, we have 3 sets of MMIs that occur, March, June, and September, and we'll give offers. So you saw someone said, I've been accepted. And so it is advantageous for you to submit your application as soon as possible, interview as soon as possible before the spots get filled. And so if you haven't sat for the MCAT yet, there is still time to get in on that September interview cycle, but I can't guarantee you that the spots won't all be taken. So your job is to go ahead, register, take the MCAT, do your interview once you reach your 504, and then be on that list for a spot if it becomes available.
Thank you very much. There's a question about research. Kayla, did you partake in any research?
I did. So I actually didn't partake in research during my first 2 years. With COVID, our journey was a little bit different from, I think, even a traditional UQ-Ochsner students. But there are research opportunities in the first 2 years. Like I think Brian mentioned, the Gardasil vaccine was invented at University of Queensland, which, if you don't know, is like just one of the modern marvels of medicine. So there is no shortage of research that can be done. And then once you are moving forward at Ochsner, more than enough research opportunities are there as well.
Great, thank you. And we are hosting a research webinar on the 24th of July. I've put that link into the chat, so please register for that one. Let me go back to the questions.
Well, on that same token, Brian, the majority of our students do research, and there is the opportunity to have an intercalated degree as well. And so you want to make sure that you're doing well in medical school so that you'll be eligible for MD, PhD, MPhil, or whatever else you want to do with us. But the most important thing is that you do well in your medical school work.
Great, thank you. Scott, a question for you regarding step 1 and step 2 exams throughout the curriculum. What sort of support do we offer our students for these exams?
Yeah, I was looking at those questions, and that's right up my alley of if the question is, are there any prep for steps available? Oh my God, we have so much prep available for our students. In the resources that they get during first and second year is just unbelievable. And then there's an entire semester that's dedicated to preparing for step 1, and they get self-assessments throughout that year to gauge their readiness. We monitor their UWorld usage so we can help them to prepare and see how they're ready and moving along.
We pay for UWorld.
Exactly. We pay for all of those resources. We have boards and beyond. All of this is listed on our website. The UWorld for step 1. We also provide UWorld for step 2. Students take step 1 at the end of second year before they begin third year. And then it's generally sometime early in their fourth year whenever they take step 2.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Dr. Webb, anything you wanted to add around that one?
Just that all of the supports are there. The thing that is important is for students to listen and to humble themselves, because You all are all smart. Everybody's so smart. That's how you got into medical school. And then you get into medical school and someone's trying to feed you from a fire hydrant and you've never had this experience before. And so it's important for you to be able to say, hey, this isn't working the way I used to do it, and I need help, to utilize the student support services, get help from your society head, and you'll be able to be successful. It's when you don't ask and you suffer in silence, no matter what you do in life, that's when you won't be successful. So it's a lot of humbling yourself and being willing to accept help.
Great, thank you. There's a question about our academic timeline. Yes, it is from January to November. Dr. Webb, is there anything extra you want to add about the timeline?
I think the advantage of that timeline that our students get over US medical students is that interviews are going to occur after that November timeline when they have their culmination. And what happens is our students are available at a drop of the dime to interview, whereas other students are trying to get off of a rotation and trying to figure this out. So our students have had the ability to take advantage of opportunities to interview that US medical students don't have. Also, that gap between when you graduate and you start your residency, many of our students do other clinical experiences, they do research, they can do a lot of things with that time that will allow them to be better practicing physicians when they go into residency. So there are definite benefits to that schedule.
Great,
I
thank
can't
you.
imagine graduating in May and then having to start residency in July with like barely a break, and you have to like move.
It will be tough. Dr. Webb, there's a question around a deposit that might be required when you accept your offer to the program. Yes, there is a deposit.
There is a deposit, but all of those details will be in your offer letter. And so you'll be able to see what that is and kind of make your plans. That's why it's a good idea to kind of apply early so you can work on getting all of that together and not feel rushed by the time it's time for you to start in January. So you want to kind of plan ahead.
Great. And there's another question in there as to how early do people apply to enroll? So as early as possible.
Yes. You want that option. You don't want the class to fill and then you're on a wait list trying to see if you get a spot and then you can't plan your life. It works for some people. I'm just a planner. I need to know where I'm going to be, but I think that it's most important for you to apply early and start to wrap your mind around coming and joining everyone in Australia.
And how many spots do we have per class?
So we range for a class 90 to 110, our goal of getting in that sweet spot of 100. And so we believe that, you know, if you apply now, you would be able to fit into that position. It's the third interview where sometimes it can be full and you'll be on a wait list, but some people do come off the wait list.
Great, thank you. Questions are slowing, but Dr. Webb, I might ask you a question about the admissions. So you said we don't require personal statement or clinical hours. Can you give us a bit more reasoning as to why we don't want that information? It's not that we just don't want it, but there is research behind why we are selecting students how we are.
So, you know, the actual evidence about success in medical school does not align with those components. And so we know that people can get tutored on how to write a nice personal statement, but, you know, how do they present themselves? How do they communicate? And so we're looking for those qualities when we're doing our MMIs to see how are you going to treat our patients? Because these are our patients. It may even be our family, and one day it'll be us. So we want to see how you can communicate, not just how you can get a well-written personal statement that's reviewed by your parents and by a tutor and by somebody else. We want to see who you are, because you are the person that's going to be caring for our community and for us. In terms of the hours and the shadowing and all that other good stuff, that's good to get. That's for you to know that this is the career for you. That's for you. you will get your experience seeing patients and having that opportunity in the medical school. And so that extra stuff is really to prove to yourself that this is the career for you. We don't require those things. Our students have been successful without it, so we don't feel the need to go back and do it differently. We've matched in very competitive residencies from neurosurgery, orthopedic surgery, OB-GYN. So we know that they're successful, and we know it because we survey their programs. And our programs have come back and told us that our residents rank in the top 1/4 of their class when they're in residency. And so we know that we taught them well because they've gone there and they've displayed that behavior. And what that does for you is that they've paved the way at residency programs for you to get a spot. So when people see you, they say, hey, wait a minute. Didn't Carla from UQ, wasn't she from UQ? And she's our chief now. So we have a lot of chief residents. So we know that the product we have, not that you're the product, but our students are excellent and that you will get an excellent education here.
Thank you. Kayla, the next two questions that have popped up are really for you, kind of talking about the earlier clinical exposure that you receive in Brisbane and how that sets you up for years 3 and 4 in New Orleans.
Okay, so some of the clinical exposure that you get during your first years, you do basically, it's like a preceptorship, like a lot of US medical students do. You're assigned to a physician, you basically go to clinic with them or go to the operating room with them. That's a good way to kind of see how Australian physicians do things. It is a little bit different from the way that we do things in the US, but it is a valuable experience. And then additionally, during your first 2 years, you do a whole class that is all about your clinical skills. So learning how to interview patients and learning how to do different physical exams. And I will say I've gotten a lot of feedback from attendings throughout the Ochsner, Tulane, and LSU systems that our students are on par, if not better, at clinical skills than a lot of US students. They really emphasize that stuff in Brisbane, and it, carries through to your time in New Orleans.
Thank you. And then the next question is around housing in Brisbane. So I know that a lot of students live in the West End area, which is probably the pick of the suburbs in Brisbane. Is that where you lived?
So I lived in the South Brisbane area in an area called Fish Lane. And something that's really good about being American in Australia is that the American dollar is very strong. I lived in the nicest apartment I will probably ever live in when I was in Brisbane, and it cost less than it cost when I lived in New Jersey. However, I did have to find that housing by myself. It was not difficult though. There are, a lot of different housing companies, landlords, and things of that nature who are aware of our program and happy to have us as tenants.
The great thing about OMSA is that they provide you with a lot of information on preparing you to get there and how to get the housing. So you'll have people to help guide you.
Yeah, I was just going to add that AMSA sets up a Facebook group page for the incoming class, so people can join and chat to each other, find roommates. So you really get all of that underway before you arrive in Brisbane. I can't see any more questions. Dr. Webb, matching. What is your prediction for the future healthcare? What sort of specialties do you think are going to be in great need that someone starting off their medical journey can consider for the future?
So I think it's important for you to do what you want to do and not to try to focus on what's the most competitive, what makes the most money. Your life is going to be medicine. And you want that life to be one where you get up and you enjoy what you do. So even when I have a crazy day and it's busy with the sickest patients, I can still say, I'm tired, but I love my job. And that's what you want. So you don't want to be able to say, I made a lot of money, but I hate doing this every day. So you have to pick what you like, not I scored the best on the steps and I can get into this program. You have to listen to what's going to fulfill you as a person, and you'll be successful at that. So what are the specialties that are in need? Definitely primary care is in need. You know, in medicine, if you watch the news, there's a shortage of doctors. There's going to be even more of a shortage. And that's why we are leaning more on mid-level providers like physician associates and nurse practitioners. So there's definite need for primary care. Rheumatologists. Said it before, best specialty ever, but it is complex. And a lot of people get rheumatology blinders and go, I don't know what that stuff is. Get an A&A. You'll learn about that soon. Don't order one, but we'll talk about it. But there are definite specialties where you can bring your desire to learn and to care for patients to and be successful.
Great, thank you. Kayla, so you obviously going into your residency applications. What have you done throughout your years to kind of prepare you for that point? Is there anything extra that you thought you needed to do outside of the UQ curriculum?
It's hard to say. Really, everyone's path is different and their goals are different. I guess a tip that I would have for anybody is to update your CV as you go through medical school, because right now we are starting to get all of our materials and our accomplishments together to apply to residency. And it is so much easier if you just have, say you got an abstract accepted when you were maybe in college or something, you did some research, got accepted. Write that down. Write down what conferences it was, when that was. That will make all of it much easier.
Great, thank you. There is a question about MD, MBA program with La Jolla. I'm not, Tamika,
Loyola.
Loyola, sorry.
Well, we're going to give you that New Orleans kind of translation dictionary, Loyola. So we do have an MD MBA program with Loyola. It's important that you be successful in medical school to be eligible to participate in that program, and you have to submit an application and then you are selected. So that program started about 2 to 3 years ago, correct me, Scott, if I'm wrong, and it's up and running and it's been successful. So you have different opportunities. Just watching our school from 2009, you can see the growth and the opportunities. We know that business and medicine is important. And so having physicians with that background will allow us to inject that kind of common sense into the finances of hospitals and into the government healthcare systems.
Thank you. Dr. Webb, another question around ethnic diversity within the program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we have students from different backgrounds. In terms of percentages, we don't have the actual numbers. University of Queensland does not focus on the actual breakdown ethnic wise, but we have organizations within the group to support everyone from different backgrounds. So we have organizations from Black and African American students, Asian students. We have women's organizations. So it is there for you if you want it. Some people will lean towards working in groups, even if they're not from that ethnic group, just to be of support. So we have a lot of different backgrounds in our school.
Great, thank you. And yes, we do have multiple dual degree programs. If you come to the research webinar in July, we will talk a little bit more about that. Dr. Webb, is there anything extra you wanted to add right now about the MD, PhD or the MD?
We don't have an MD-PH, but we do have the MD, PhD, the MPhil, and the MD-MBA.
Great. I think our hour has nearly come to the end. That went pretty quickly. So I might get the panel to have some final words. Dr. Webb, what final words do you have for the group or advice? Yes, sorry. Yeah. What advice do you have?
So my advice for you is to look and figure out who you are as a person. Figure out what your strengths are. Do you have the ability to leave your family, go to a different country, and rely on your own skills and seek support? I know our students like Kayla are courageous. They are leaders. You heard how many organizations she's involved in and the research that she's done. She is typical for the type of student that will be successful at Ochsner. You have to be willing to take that leap and to be a self-starter. And so that's what we're looking for in our students. And if you're able to do that, you will find the success here.
Great. Thank you. Scott, any final words, advice?
Yeah, although we are located on 2 different continents, the administration works so closely. I talk to my colleagues in Brisbane more than I talk to some people that even work right across the street. It's just, and even with the technology of Zoom, I mean, I have such a great relationship with them, and it's so much easier for us to communicate. So it's not, it may be a couple of miles away, but it seems like we're on the same place.
Great. Thank you. And lucky last, Kayla.
All right. I guess advice is that, like many things in life, medical school is what you make it. And you really get out what you put in, no matter what program or situation you are in. That is especially true with the UQ-Ochsner program, and they do their best to support us. And I have no regrets personally. I chose this program over going to a DO school, and I no regrets. It's all good.
Great, thank you. So as you know, we're recruiting for our 2025 cohort, and I believe the deadline for applications for the next round of MMIs is the 19th of May. Is that correct? Sounds correct? Great, so get your applications in if you haven't already. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you, panel, for all your advice. I hope you have a good evening.
Thanks, Brian and Kayla. Have a good day.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kayla. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.